Okay, now we are live. I'm going to make you host. So can you please make me the co-host?
Sure thing. There you go. Good afternoon, Janet. Hi, Ed. How are you? Hello, Yvonne and Leslie. Leslie, were you in the last class? That's what I thought. Good to see you. Hi, Janet. Hi, Ed. Ed is enjoying the class today from Hawaii, I think.
Bahamas.
Where?
Bahamas.
The Bahamas. Welcome, Pat.
Hello.
And hi, Nelda. Welcome. We'll give it a couple more minutes for people to join us. There were a lot signed up for this class. So, is there anybody here today who is planning on taking a trip this year? I know some of you have been in other classes and you've already said you're planning on taking a trip. Put in the chat where you think you want to go this year. I'm going to put in the chat where I'm hoping to go. Italy. There we go. I want to go to Italy. Oh, Yvonne wants to go to Cape May. That's nice. I haven't been there, but I've seen pictures of it. I used to go to Ocean City, New Jersey. Ed wants to go to Hawaii. And even though the picture the behind you might be the Bahamas, that does look awfully Hawaii-like.
I wish.
Welcome, Dottie and Barbara. Kathy wants to go to Pacific Northwest or Colorado. Both great places to go. Barbara wants to go to Iceland. Ooh, that's nice. And we do have Rachel, who is part of the Get Set Up team, is our TA today. So we want to welcome Rachel. If you have any problems or issues with anything, you can send a message in the chat to Rachel, especially if you have any technical problems. Also today, as I'm going along, if you have questions, please put them in the chat and I'll circle around to those questions, and or Rachel will remind me of them if I don't see them. Glad to have you all. This is the last class for me of the week. It's been a lot of travel classes this week and a lot of travel. I flew for the first time last weekend in over a year and a half. I decided in 2020 to stay out of planes and out of airports and to keep my travel to car or bike or something like that, which I did both of last year. And finally this year, made a flight to Portland, Maine from Dulles Airport in Washington. I used to fly regularly as part of my job, and also have done lots of international travel just for fun myself, or with my wife, mostly with my wife. And but it was funny, after not having flown for nearly 20 months, I felt a bit like a greenhorn when I got to the airport, had to remember all my old routines. Fortunately, the airport was not crowded. I would say the Dulles Airport was going at about 25 or 30% capacity. And so I guess that was nice. My flight to Portland was full. My flight back from Portland was about 25% full. So glad to have you all here. I see lots of new names and travel classes. Really glad to have you all. This class is one of my favorite classes. Janet is reminding us that Cape May is wonderful. If they're purchased the Cape May diamond, white quartz washes up in the beach, jewelry store is polished and mounted in jewelry. Nice souvenir. Very nice. I'll have to remember that. The New Jersey beaches are nice. They're especially nice for temperature later in the year. They're a little bit cool in June. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. And we'll talk about, actually, I'm going to stop that. We'll go back. How to pack a carry-on for a 2-week trip. I'm Russ Eanes, your guide. I'm from Harrisonburg, Virginia, which is in the lovely Shenandoah Valley. If you want to know more about the Shenandoah Valley, I'm doing a class on it next week. That'll be, let's see, next Thursday at 4. So I hope to see you all in that class. I'm a writer, a walker, and a cyclist. I formerly was a book publisher, and I used to love to help authors shape their ideas into books. Now I'm a full-time guy with Get Set Up. Love working with all the older learners and all the energy that I get from working with you. Got a few more people joining us today right now. Get Set Up, as you know, helps you learn useful skills from people like you so you can all do all sorts of wonderful things. And we learn from each other. Ideally, we can see you and your cameras are on. Thank you for doing that. You can request a recording after class, email help@getsetup.io. And Rachel, our TA, has helpfully put that in the chat if you need to find that email address. Anyone joining by live stream, the best way to participate is to join us and register for a class. We are live streaming today. So anybody out there live streaming, hey, quick, come and register for the class. Join in. Lastly, Get Setup's not paid to promote any specific products. Let's see here. There we go. So we're going to talk today about how to pack a carry-on and why that's the best way to do, no matter how long you're going for. This class is not a prescription for how you're supposed to pack. Some people think I'm telling them what they're supposed to do. I'm definitely not telling you what you're supposed to do. This is a class for those who'd like to learn how to pack lightly. I started packing just a carry-on more than a decade ago. I used to travel flew about 10 times a year for my job and a couple times a year in personal travel. And I learned the art of packing just a carry-on. And then in 2018, I carried a 28-liter, 16-pound pack for 500 miles across northern Spain and walked the Camino de Santiago. And there I learned the art of traveling even lighter because my pack had even less than a carry-on would have. And I was gone for 6 weeks. That's my pack right there. So I've really learned the art of traveling light. Okay, let's start with our definition of what a carry-on suitcase is. A carry-on suitcase typically is 22 inches by 14 by 9 inches. That's the allowance that most airlines give, and they'll tell you that. And so most carry-on bags have that dimension in them. I should point out that often people don't abide by that rule. My wife and I, when we were flying back the other day, we saw a number of people, maybe even half, trying to squeeze a bag that was too big into the carry-on. They usually had it stuffed too thick, and we would just see them struggle forever to get it in there. And that's really not what you're supposed to do. And a lot of them even just kind of lazily turned it sideways, which means you can get fewer carry-ons in the overhead bins. But a 22 by 14 by 9 is what a lot of them are sized for. And that's what the airlines technically allow you to take as a carry-on. But when the reasons for about a carry-on bag is not just that volume, that 22 by 14 by 9, it's also about weight. When you're traveling, you're going to have to haul that bag, and maybe you've got wheels, but there are going to be times when you have to lift it. And coming off the airplane Monday, I saw a guy grab an enormous duffel bag that was bigger than the carry-on size. How he got it through and why, I do not know. He pulled it off and he dropped it on the head of a woman who stood up just right then. Was a heavy bag, and he shouldn't have been struggling with it like that. I guess he was in a bit of a hurry, and he shouldn't have been in a bit of a hurry to get off the plane. I've traveled to Europe, and I've taken a carry-on suitcase, 3 or 4, 6 blocks down a sidewalk, and sometimes had to carry it up to the 5th floor of an apartment or a building I was staying in. I've stayed in a hotel in Paris that had 9 floors and it did not have an elevator, and had to carry it all the way up to the top. So that weight matters. Even if you got wheels, sometimes you have to lift that thing, and even hoisting it into an overhead bin can be a chore. So what I'm going to talk about today is not just packing in terms of small volume, but also packing light in terms of weight. Overhead carry-on bags come in a couple varieties. The variety here I have on the left, which is actually kind of is smaller than a regular size carry-on bag is a bag with spinner wheels on it. That means it's got 4 wheels in the bottom and they swivel. They're about 2 inches total between the wheel and the little housing that holds the wheel. And spinners are good bags. They're great for going to airports and hotel lobbies and down the aisles of planes. But if you have to haul that spinner 4 or 5 or 6 blocks down a rough sidewalk somewhere, they're not very good for that because those small wheels on the bottom can break off. And I've had a wheel break off even on a rollerboard, because this other type of bag, the one that I've got right here, is a rollerboard. It only has 2 wheels in the back. So the larger standard bag I'm showing you there with 2 wheels is called a rollerboard, and this is called a spinner with the 4 wheels on the bottom. Spinners also, because that the wheels are part of the overall length of the bag, that's 2 extra inches that you don't have in your bag. So that's one reason why I'd say if space is a premium in your bag, get a rollerboard or use a rollerboard with the wheels in the back. The spinner, besides being a spinner with 4 wheels in the bottom, it's also a bit of a smaller bag. I got this intentionally. It's smaller in every dimension for putting in the overhead bins on these regional jets, the kind that would have only 3 seats total, like 2 on one side and 1 on the other. They have smaller overhead bins, and I used to have to fly those on occasion to Canada and other places in the US, and that bag fit in there. So if I could, I would actually pack that bag if I was just going on a 1 or 2 day trip. You'll notice on my rollerboard here, I've got a strap which is used for hanging or attaching like a briefcase or something on it. But also I've got this red carabiner clip that identifies my bag. Why would you have it? Why do you need an identifier on a carry-on bag? Well, sometimes when you're at the jetway, you have to gate check a bag. Gate check means that your bag is checked at the gate, not at the ticket desk. It also means that typically when it's gate checked, they take it off, the bag off at the gate, and they drop it back on the jetway for you at the end of your flight. And you'll see a lot of people lined up at the jetway to collect their bags. Well, if everybody's got a black bag, and most bags are black, I've had somebody accidentally start to walk off with my bag because it looked like theirs. Unfortunately, I spotted that red carabiner. I said, "Excuse me, I think you've got my bag." Oops. So I always say, even if it's just and plus there are also times when you may have to check it. Sometimes when I've been flying back overseas, I've stuffed my carry-on with more stuff than can fit in the overhead compartment. I'll show you in a minute. It's an expandable bag, and then that red carabiner can identify that my bag. This is my rollerboard laying down. So there's the 2 wheels on the bottom, and they kind of go inside the bag a bit, so I can actually stuff the full 22 inches here. So I researched a lot when I bought this bag, maybe, I don't know, 8 years ago. It's a Travel Pro, not that expensive. I think it cost only about $100. And a couple things I got in this bag that I really like, besides the wheels, it has good heavy duty zippers. And you'll notice this zipper right here is the one that opens the top of the bag, but it's also got an expandable compartment that the bag can actually get about 2 inches deeper. And again, that won't fit on a standard carry-on compartment, but sometimes in Europe, my wife and I have gotten some extra souvenirs or things like that, maybe some clothing we want to bring home as a gift to somebody or to wear ourselves. And so we want to put more in the bag. And so we've used the expandable capacity of a rollerboard to put extra things in and then check that bag on the way home. There's reasons why you want to carry a carry-on bag besides the fact you can put it in the bin. I know some people that traveled over to the UK on a 2-week tour. She's a colleague I used to work with, and she and her husband flew out of Pittsburgh Airport, and they went to New York, and New York to London. They got to London just fine, but their bags didn't. And they were on one of these tours where every night they were staying in a different place on a bus. And the airline promised they would get their bag to them, but the bags pretty much followed them a day behind where they were. And so they had to buy extra clothing. And so I would say even on an overseas trip, maybe even especially on an overseas trip, you got a carry-on bag, you arrive for this special trip you're taking, and everything is with you. So number one rule about a carry-on is that when you get off the plane, you've got everything. You don't have to go to the baggage claim and take the chance that something didn't make it. And when you have connecting flights, that gives the airline one extra opportunity to misplace your bag. The second reason I like a carry-on is that when you get to your destination, you're there, you've got everything, you walk off the airplane and you're set to go. I think that's a very important consideration. Sometimes you might even have a tight transportation connection at the other end. Maybe there's a train you're trying to catch or a bus or something like that from the airport. And so if you've got your bag and walk right off and head through security and border control, it gets you there faster. So there are many reasons for taking a carry-on, but I think the ability to know that you've got everything when you arrive and know that you can get off the plane immediately with it is really important. I mentioned here when buying a bag, think about the wheels. Most spinner wheels are good for airports and airplanes and hotel lobbies, and make sure your bag has good zippers. Strong heavy duty zippers. I've had zippers burst on me on a bag that was overpacked because they were kind of cheap. The other thing about wheels being strong, and this is why I researched about this one, I've also had a wheel fail on me in a European city. I was just dragging the bag down the sidewalk, and when the wheel broke. It's one of the predecessors to this bag. And so the wheels on my bag are replaceable if one of them were to get damaged or break off or something like that, but they're also pretty heavy duty. So I'm not very likely to have that happen. Okay, so a lot of people want to know about the mechanics or the operations or the procedures of packing everything in a carry-on bag. So I'm going to show you how I would pack one, and I have my wife do it, and because the women will tell me women take more clothing, so I had my wife do that. And over the years, because I've traveled a lot and I also done hiking and a lot of touring, I've gathered a lot of lightweight clothing, clothing that is quick drying and maybe wicking. And it's not all that expensive. I think most of the pieces here I bought somewhere for a good price. REI has things that are very good for traveling in or hiking. This down jacket I have here, I bought at Costco for $30. Bought the Polar Tech fleece at Costco for like $15. So I've got here a jacket, a fleece, a rain jacket, a heavier jacket, an umbrella, and a cap. And this is if I'm packing to go somewhere in the cooler weather. Like last week when I went to Maine, I didn't take that heavy jacket. I didn't even take my rain jacket. I didn't even bring along my umbrella. This is a special compact travel umbrella that my wife and I have a pair of these. So I was able to get away with quite a bit of less even. And I take it and I just roll everything up mostly. But in this case of these things here, I didn't need to roll them all up. My windbreaker rolls up into its own pocket, which I really like. There's a zipper on each side. And so it makes a nice little pouch, keeps it from getting damaged. And it can fit nicely into a suitcase. Then I also laid out for a 2-week trip. I pack a minimum of what I can get away with, just a couple of shirts. I have a quarter zip that I can pull over me for. It's also UV protection. Underwear, handkerchiefs, extra pair of shorts. Of course, I'm wearing pants when I go traveling. And in the case of preparing for this trip, I have actually a pair of convertible pants where the bottom of the legs zips off and they can turn into shorts. But I also got lightweight travel trousers that I bought at Eddie Bauer, again, about $30. You don't have to lay out a fortune to get lightweight, quick drying travel clothing, some lounge pants, t-shirts, and things for sleeping. These cool shirts right here, which are very nice. They're wicking, they're quick drying. I think you can get those at Costco. I think I got this one at Ross Dress for Less, where I got this shirt, maybe like $6 or $7. Roll all those up, and my suitcase, the roller board, has these 2 ridges in it where the handle, the telescoping handle, goes down into the bag. And so what I do is I roll things up and I lay them down in the kind of like wells that the bag creates by having those telescoping handles. Let's check the question here. Okay. And then after I do that, I take everything else, and in this case, I didn't even roll them up. I just laid them in very nicely. Put in my travel kit right here. This is where I keep all my toiletries and an LL Bean bag, which hangs up when it opens. And then I got everything in easily inside a carry-on bag for 2 weeks. I've got some more things I'll put in here later. I'll show you, but these is the basic clothings and toiletries. And I always tell people when you are going somewhere and traveling to keep light, think layers, think quick dry, think wicking. So the clothing I showed you here, which was even for a very cold climate, everything's in layers so I can add things if it's cold, or I can subtract things when it becomes warmer. My favorite thing, of course, is the quarter zip. The one I have a couple of these, and they're nice. Besides being a nice light layer that is wicking and quick drying, it also has UV protection. This is a quarter zip for women. I think this is kind of a cool thing because it's got this nice breast pocket right here. You can put a wallet or a cell phone in there to keep safe. These are not expensive. You can get these for about $30, and they're a great all-around piece of clothing. They can even substitute for a long sleeve shirt. Now, I asked my wife to lay out and pack a bag, and I asked her to go by something called the 5-4-3-2-1 rule. 5 tops, 4 bottoms. 5 pairs of underwear and socks. 4 tops, 3 bottoms, 2 pairs of shoes, and 1 hat. Okay. And considering that she probably would be wearing some clothing, that's so it isn't all here to pack, I asked her to lay all that out and then pack it in a bag. And so she did the same thing where she then rolled it all up and stuck it down in the well of the suitcase, putting her shoes in. You can even stuff some socks in your shoes if you'd like. And then she laid some things. She likes to use these little bags which have netting on one side and a zipper, and you can stuff a lot of things in there. It's a good way to organize small things in a suitcase if you want to keep your stuff organized. Then she threw in her hat. Oh, that jumped a little bit too far forward. And she got it all in easily again. I've got some more stuff we would put in there, some electronics and other things, and I'll show you about that. Here's some other things you can use for organizing a bag is stuff sacks. These are one of my favorites. I've got orange, red, and blue, and they're different size sacks, and I can put different things in there for different times of the day. You can even use one for keeping your dirty clothes in. You can also, this is my bathroom or toiletry kit from LL Bean. Not expensive, maybe $25. It hangs up on a hook. So you can put it on the back of a door in a bathroom, and you can put toothpaste, toothbrush, anything you want in it. Several of the compartments are see-through, so you can see what's in them. I like that a lot. Sometimes we like to employ packing cubes. These are various sizes, but they're made for going in a carry-on bag. So for example, the length of this packing cube is a width of your bag, or the 14-inch width. And that's also a way to organize your things. And you can stuff a lot of things into a packing cube. Here's some of the other types of bags we use of various sizes. Again, they have net sides so that you can see what's in them. And I always bring along some Ziploc baggies to put small things in. It's a good way to see stuff, especially like electronics. I like to put electronics in a Ziploc baggie. Let's just go back here. Let me just look at some of the questions that people have generated so far. It says, how do you feel about packing cubes? Well, you see, I didn't use them in this instance, but I'll show you some other pictures from another trip I took just now, how I used packing cubes. I like packing cubes. When I do backpacking, I just use a stuff sacks, not packing cubes. But for a suitcase, they're very nice because they're modular to fit inside of a suitcase. Janet says, Jambu JBU shoes are great. And I'll repeat the 5-4-3-2-1 rule, and you'll get all of this in your notes at the end. So if you feel like anything went too fast and you missed it, you'll get all the information in your class notes at the end. It is 5 pairs of socks and underwears, 4 tops, 3 bottoms, 2 shoes, and 1 hat. That's the basic clothing rule. For me, that's even a little bit generous. I tend to take fewer things. I tend to take maybe just 3 tops and 2 bottoms, and maybe only 3 pairs of socks and underwear, because again, I get things that I can wash and dry. I hand wash clothes to save on packing weight, so I can pack fewer clothes. And there's a type of soap, and I'll give this, you'll get it in your notes. It's called Fell's Naphtha soap. It's an old-fashioned bar soap that has been used forever for washing, and I hand wash my clothes with that. When I walked across Spain for 6 weeks, I hand washed my clothes every day, and about once a week, I threw them in a washing machine. I'm just looking at the brand of packing cubes. If the mouse will let me pause on that. I don't see the names of those packing. I think they're called Dot. That's right. They're called Dot packing cubes. Bought them on Amazon. They're modular. And they're different sizes, but they fit together in a bag. So they're really nice. That's why I like Dot packing cubes. They're not expensive either. This side is a mesh, so you can see what's in them. And when I packed the other day, I used Dot packing cube. There's my wife's packing job. Now let me just show you one other thing here. We're going the wrong way. I'm going to come to electronics, but let me first show you how I packed a bag this weekend, because this was, I said to myself, well, wow, what would it look like if I put more stuff in a bag than I have other times? And so these are all the things I had on my checklist. There's my clothing I took for a weekend. Oh, so this is the clothing that I would take that followed that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 rule, with everything all folded up and put in a suitcase like that with some shoes on the top. But one thing I do is I have a packing list. And in my packing list, I have everything I want to take on the trip. And what I do is I lay everything out on the bed, everything that's on the packing list. And I go down that list one item at a time, and I see that it's there before I put anything in my suitcase. And that way I'm sure I have everything that I need on my to take on my trip. In this case, I laid everything in the bottom of the bag
You can
like
no
that.
longer see the other screen.
Oh, you can't see it. I apologize. I apologize. Thanks, everybody. Can you see that now?
Yes.
There we go. I didn't share correctly. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. I'm going to go back up here where I was. When I was packing this last weekend, I thought I would do a little demo to show this week how I did it. And I have a packing list. It's right here. I keep it inside a piece of plastic, and it details everything I need to take with me on a trip. And I lay everything out on the bed, and I just go down the list and accumulate all those things and put them on the bed. And when I think I have everything, I go down the entire list, make sure it's all there. And those are all my electronics and pens and pencils and cameras and things. And this is all the clothing that was on the list. This was the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I accumulated that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 list with extra shirts and a fleece. And then I packed everything in the bag. In the end, it looked like this. But when I packed it, I did the same thing where I put everything rolled up or folded up real tightly into the wheel well at the bottom. And there's where I used one of those packing cubes. And I like that because I stuffed every other bit of clothing into one packing cube. And then that's when I put my shoes and my jacket right here, and the bathroom kit on the top. And again, this took up less than a full carry-on bag. So there are many ways you can decide what you want to carry on a trip, but there really is no reason why you can't get everything you need for a 2-week trip in a carry-on. Now, these are some of the other items that I bring along with me on a trip. These are my electronics. So I've got a camera down here at the bottom. I actually have 2 cameras. They're both travel cameras, so they're pretty compact. I've got some camera gear in here. And then these are all the little adapters that you need for plugging things into the wall. And these 2 are European only. So you've got the 2 little prongs that you can use on the continent. This is an American plug adapter for an iPhone. And this is a plug adapter for the UK if you want to plug something in for the UK. I always bring along a little battery for my phone. This battery right here is small, but it will charge an iPhone completely or charge my camera if I want to. If I'm somewhere and I can't get to an outlet, I can charge it with that. This is a little stuff sack I bring along, about about the size of my fist, and it's a little knapsack I can take along when I'm walking around wherever I am. I like to keep when I get to my destination at the end of the day, and I of course got headphones in a little baggie. I like to keep everything contained and together. Cords I always put in baggies so they don't get twisted up on each other. There's another view of some of those electronic things that I have. And this morning, I even showed everyone a different thing, which I can show you later. It's from Lensent, which is a universal adapter for all over the world. I'll show you how you can plug USB devices into that. For travel, unless I'm working, and I often do a lot of work when I travel, I even write a blog about my trip. But if I'm not having to take along my laptop, I just take along an iPad mini and its charger. I like to grab inexpensive trade or mass market paperbacks like this. I'll pick them up at a store used, for $1. And that way, if it gets beat up on the trip or gets lost, I haven't had a big investment. I like to read books about the places I'm going. This is the book Bread and Wine. It's an Italian classic. And so when I went to Italy, I was reading an Italian classic because that's where I was. Let's see. Oh, yes. So Leslie is asking, what brands are your travel cameras? Good questions, because I really love my travel cameras. Let me show you back here. They're both Sony's. This one is about 8 years old, and it is, I've even forgotten the model number on it. But this one down here is the RX100, and the RX100 is sort of the Cadillac of travel cameras. It's very small, compact, has a very fast lens, has a very big sensor. So there's a lot you can do with it. You can get really high quality photography out of it. I even have a little leather cover that goes over. It looks kind of like an old fashioned camera from the past, and has a strap, and I can carry around my neck to keep it secure. So I like they're both Sony's, and because they're both Sony's, I'm familiar with the kind of operational interface of Sony cameras. I don't have to think like this one's a Canon. How does Canon work, or how does Pentax work, or something like that? They're both Sony, so they have very similar interface and electronics. Good question. I have an Apple phone and iPhone, and I bring along my iPad. This is the stuff sack here on my left. Again, it's about the size of my fist. This isn't even packed up as tight as it can go. I also like to bring along when I'm going overseas. And if some of you have been in my other classes, I talk about this as one of the top tips. I have a little folding duffel bag. And that little folding duffel bag, when you fold it up, if you look on the left, it can get quite sizable. You can put a lot in it. And sometimes my wife and I, when we travel, we want to bring things back. An alternative to checking our carry-on bag, we might just put some of our clothing and things that we brought along with us in the duffel bag, and then put gifts and other stuff that we bought in our carry-on, so we can make sure it gets back and what gets back home with us. This is me with my stuff sack, carrying it on the front. That's a way you can do it for safety and security if you're in a city and you're worrying about pickpockets or something like that. That stuff sack, I love it. It gets quite big. I can put a lot of things in it, but yet it packs up very small, and it's very lightweight. Another thing we both bring along is this type of sling bag right here. You can see this woman's got it over her back. My wife takes this in lieu of a purse. And men can carry it. It's unisex. And you can carry it on your back. You can turn it around. You can carry it on your front. If you're in a place where you're a little worried about feeling what's in your back might be on your back might be vulnerable, you can swing it around. You can put it on your front. Very handy thing for travel. Again, the one my wife has folds up into itself. Again, about the size of your fist. But she likes to take it on the plane and keep whatever she might need on the flight in that bag. And again, that's in lieu of carrying a purse for her. Of course, she doesn't carry a lot of valuables in it. Well, let me stop the share here and ask questions about carry on. And let me also check the chat here, questions that you might have. One of the questions said, I used one last year during COVID-19 shopping. Yvonne, do you want to expand on that?
Well, the sling bags, rather than use a pocketbook with all of the safety precautions, I bought one off of Amazon, and it was so easy to get in and out of stores and stuff.
Oh, good, good. Yeah, I, men don't carry purses. I guess it's because we supposedly have pockets. I don't think I have enough room in my pockets to put everything in. So I don't really get why a man can't carry a purse. I have a small sling bag that I occasionally take with me because I can put, extra eyeglasses and a water bottle and a jacket in if I'm going somewhere, and then I've got it all with me. This little thing I'll show you right here, which is this lens scent. I'll see if I can get this up close enough for you to see. If you do a speaker view on Zoom, you can see this really well. This thing has 4 USB ports on it. There's where it says lens scent. 4 USB ports, 22 watts, which means it will charge an iPad. And you can put in multiple phones. And what's neat is on the back, then it's got this little thing folds down prong. So this is what you can do for the United States. You just fold this down, and you can plug it in anywhere. But let's say you're going to the continent in Europe where their prongs look like this. What you do is you put that on there like this, and now you've got a power converter. Use your 4 USB ports, and you can use it in any country in the European country. You can use it in France or Italy or Germany. If you're going to England, where they have 240 volt, and they have a different looking kind of outlet, that snaps right on there. So that now can be used in England. So you just need this one thing. And the reason I like having 4 ports is that a lot of European countries, and it's also true in South America, they have retrofitted electricity into their buildings, and there might only be 1 outlet in a room, at maximum 2. I think the room I'm sitting in has about 5 outlets. And so it's just very different. And so you want all those extra ports because you may only have 1 outlet to plug everything into. So this is a handy thing to take along. It's a very lightweight. One little thing does everything. So I like that. And then I just bring along my cables to go into there. Let me check the chat here for questions. Yes. How do you spell Lencent? Thank you. I'm going to, I'll put that in the chat for you. It's Lencent. There you go, Lencent. And I got mine on Amazon. And it came with all the adapters. There's even an adapter in here for Australia. Don't know that I'm going to get to Australia, but it has a little bag that goes with it. One other thing to point out to all of you, guys, one of my top travel tip classes, I teach this, but this is the little adapter that my iPad plugs into. And Apple now sells kits that have all the little prongs that you can snap on and off your Apple charger. Kind of same kind of idea. And you can put that on. So if you're going to the continent and you're going to take along your iPad, for $29, you can get that kit from Amazon that has everything you need. And then you just replace this before you go, or take it along and have the other one along with you. If you want, and you can get the same kind of thing for a laptop charger. So very handy thing to have. More questions about packing for everything in a carry-on for a 2-week trip. You really don't need all that stuff. And there's all kinds of rules that you can develop. But I always say the easiest rule is that look carefully at everything you think you're going to need and ask yourself if you really need that. And I learned over the years that it's not only by getting everything in a carry-on doesn't mean I have less. It just makes life simpler when you're traveling, especially if you're packing and unpacking frequently. If you're on a tour or something like that, where you're unpacking every day or two, you don't want to have all that stuff. When I walked in the Camino de Santiago, I stayed somewhere different every night, and having everything just in a few stuffed sacks, very few items. In fact, I think I had a total of 40 items, was really easy then in the morning. Just put everything back in their stuffed sacks and take off. Comments or questions? Go ahead and
Hey,
unmute
Russ?
yourself. Yes, Nancy.
Hi. Could you explain again about that electronic thing, the most recent one, after the lens sense?
Yes, I will. So this right here is the charging unit for an iPad. Okay, it's about 1.5 inches square. The one for my laptop that I'm teaching this class on is a bit bigger. It's probably about 2 inches square. Okay, but they look similar. And it used to be that Apple hardwired the cords for their chargers into the charger. Now Apple has, just like this is a USB for an iPad, and for my laptop it has a US. They call this a USB-A. It's a USB-C. It's a new type of USB port, and so you can take the cord out of it. They have this little. If you look at it, you'll see that this little thing comes right out. That it's your plug, your prongs. That comes off of your adapter. And what's nifty is you can buy this kit from Apple for $29, and it will give you these same types of adapters that were in the LensSent, but they just snap right into this like that, and you'll have like the 2-prong for the continent, or the 3-prong for the UK, or the kind of slanted prong for Australia. Those are really nice because you do need to bring for a laptop a bigger charger. And if you want to bring a bigger charger like this for your iPad, you can. And then you don't have to worry about, sticking this into the other adapter that you put into sometimes you have multiple adapters sticking out of a wall when you're traveling. That something can fall out because of weight. I've had that happen, and or get bumped out. So this is the new thing. I would recommend, I'm not promoting this. I mean, in the sense of Apple paying me, I do recommend that when you get electronics for Apple devices, I recommend getting the Apple brand. They are more reliable. I've had, I don't know how many charging cables go out on me that weren't Apple. And someone who used to work in an Apple store told me that what might happen, he couldn't explain why, but he says every now and then there'll be an upgrade to the operating system or something in an Apple, and those old cords suddenly don't work. So he said, just get an Apple brand cord, spend a few dollars more. I also don't, when I get my Apple charging cords for my phone, I don't get the ones that are any longer than 3 feet, maybe the 3 or 4 feet. I get the shortest kind because they weigh less and it's less to wind up and tangle and get mixed up. And it's pretty rare that 3-foot cord won't reach something for you. So you don't need those real long cords either. Yeah, check Apple on their charging devices. That I just discovered that last night, that they sell the whole kit for the World Traveler kit for just $29. I thought that was a bargain.
But there's 2 separate purchases. One is the USB-C port thing.
Well, no, you just need a kit that you'd have to find the type of device you want to get that for, whether it's an iPad or a laptop. And you need to identify your laptop because all the chargers are now different. The charger I have for I have the latest MacBook Air. Its charger is different than any of my previous Macintosh computers. You just put in the model you have, and they'll tell you the kit that you can buy that has these little little things on it.
Right. But you get that thing, and then you also separately order the World Traveler charging kit from Apple.
Yeah, I also have used this LensSent. If I try not to travel with my laptop because I don't want to carry the extra weight.
Well, no, I was going to use an iPad Mini, like you had said.
Yeah, this thing will charge an iPad Mini.
Okay.
Because so I've been studying this. I'm one of those people that used to buy electronic devices and plug them into the wall, and I was happy.
Mhm.
But then people started asking all sorts of questions about, does this work and that work? Well, what I found out is if you can read on the side of the device, it'll say the maximum wattage it puts out, which is 22 watts. And I noticed that on my iPad, it says it's a 10 watt USB power adapter. So I know that this will now charge up my iPad because it's got more juice than the iPad needs for minimum. And it will allow you to put 4 devices in it. The iPhone or my camera charge at like 5 watts. So you could put 4 or 5 watt in, or like 110 watt and 2 5 watt or whatever. Most of us don't bring that many devices. My wife, this is nice because my wife and I can both charge a phone on this. More questions? Hiroko, you had a question, I think, or a comment.
No, I don't have a questions. I started carrying on quite many years ago because I used to travel all over the place, all over the world on the United Nations. And a couple of times, and especially when my missions were headed for Latin America, my luggage literally disappeared. And it was most embarrassing experience was my luggage. I was attend formal conference in Mexico City, and my luggage was stolen, I'm sure. Never reappeared. So I have to buy this kind of embroidered Mexican, moo looking stuff, and I had to go to very stiff conference. And that moment I decided never to check in, ever. So be it that for the traveling for leisure or formal conferences, for up to maybe 3 weeks, I never check in.
Thank you, Hiroko. And I know you are a seasoned traveler, so that's good advice from a seasoned traveler. People have often asked me, what's the biggest advantage of carrying a carry-on? I say, very simple. It arrives with me.
With you, yeah.
I have spent a lot of time and investment in getting on this trip and planning it and making reservations. The last thing in the world I want to do is get there and not have my luggage. And again, that work colleague I had, who she and her husband spent 2 weeks without her stuff, was not quite a nightmare, but they didn't enjoy their trip as much. And I think I took a trip the next year, and I said, well, I'll be darned, we're going to carry on our bags. We're not going to check anything. And I have checked bags on an overseas flight. When I went to Colombia in 2018, I had to bring things back for my son. So I actually packed an empty carry-on inside an empty, large suitcase because I was bringing stuff back. It got there. I will say, this doesn't change it, but every time you have a leg of a flight, like I said, you give the airline one more opportunity to lose your bag. And every time I've ever had to check a bag for work, so sometimes I would take demonstration materials or something like that for my job, and I had to check the bag because I couldn't carry 2 bags on. That's when I had the bag lost. I'm sorry, if I had a layover somewhere for a few minutes or, for a few hours, that's when I would get the bag lost. The airline would somehow mess up. And don't ask me how. Unlike Hiroko, I've never lost one completely. They've just always what I call misplaced it. And when I went to Manitoba,
Lost or misplaced is a very mild and very kind of kind expressions, but I said stolen.
Yours was gone. That's right.
To be seen again.
Yep.
That is hardest experiences. Yeah.
Any more suggestions or comments about a carry-on?
Okay.
Less is more is what I say. Less is more. Take less. You'll have a better time. Well, I want to thank everybody for being in this class this afternoon. Several of you were in classes with me earlier today. I really enjoyed it. Next week, I have a lot more travel classes. Monday, I've got one on using online and mobile apps to plan your travel. So please come to that one at 1 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time. 4:30, I'll be doing a class on traveling overseas on a budget. So maybe you're thinking of going abroad and how can I afford to do that? We'll come to this class. And 7:30, we have another learner Daniela, who's going to talk to us about Bulgaria, which happens to be one of the countries open to American travels right now. So find all about Bulgaria. Thanks again for coming, everybody. I hope to see all of you in some more classes next week. Otherwise, you have a great evening and a good weekend. So long.